know everybody is hungry and I would like to make it light and quick, so don't worry. Before I go ahead with today's topic, that is sustainable food system and environmental impact, we have been talking so much about millets. So I would like to know from you what is special about millets that connects it to sustainability. Anybody?
They require less water for production.
They require less water for production.
Anybody else?
Sorry. Anything else?
Ma'am,
Yes.
they can be grown in rotation with other crops.
They can be grown in rotation with other crops. So we can save on soil, we can save on water. They have more nutrient in them. So we can have additional nutrients from them. So when we are talking about sustainability, this is what we are talking about. Today's topic is sustainable food systems and environmental impacts. As an alumni of this university, I am really honored to be here. I remember myself coming back here 20 years back and talking to Urvi madam about PhD, taking guidance from her. So I'm really thankful to this university. It really inculcated good values in me. It gave me skills and it really strengthened me to be here. It taught me that you need to be, running in the long run. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So you have to really work on different aspects. Sustainable food systems, when we are going to talk about, and environmental impacts. I now work at CCDC New Delhi on a sustainable food system projects. So, are you okay with this, please? Yeah. This one? Okay. Oh, thank you. Is the sensitive?
No, it works that way.
Okay. So this is how we are going to go ahead with today's presentation. I will touch upon what is the definition of food systems, what is the concept of One Health, which you might have heard of, then how we have the sustainable development goals, how we have shifted from food systems to sustainable food systems, and environmental impacts of food and agriculture. There are a few examples which I will be giving from my own research in relation to this field. So, sorry. Sorry. So, what do you understand by food systems? Where does it start?
Primary producers that start from the grass level.
Grass level. So, farmers.
Yeah,
Farmers. Then next is. Yeah, go to next step. Yeah, so when we are talking about One Health, what does it mean? It means that it is an interconnection between people, animals, plants, and overall environment. So when we are talking about health, we are no more thinking only about human beings and human health. We have to think about the whole environment. We have to think about other animals, plants, and the whole system as such. So the whole sustainable food system is now thinking from One Health point of view as a principle. This is being followed when we are deciding SDGs, when we are deciding about other targets, and which are being followed internationally at all levels. So when we are thinking about any system, we are not going to think only about humans and their adequate diets and adequate nutrition. It also has to be environmentally sustainable. It has to feed animals. It has to grow the plants well. That whole system is going to be considered overall. Next, please. You must be aware of this image, right? Sustainable Development Goals.
yes.
Huh? So who has said it?
It is set by the UN.
UN.
It was preceded by the Millennium Development Goals. Now they are supposed to be achieved by 2030.
Great. So Millennium Development Goals, they had a very good success rate based on which Sustainable Development Goals were set. And as you can see, majority of them are connected with nutrition. So nutrition no more remains like an individual diet giving or community nutrition. It has become part of the development of the whole country, whole world now. So we cannot be restricting our knowledge just to one food their nutrient contents, how they can be prescribed to patients, how they can be given to community, but we have to go ahead and think about the whole planet overall development. For that, we need to know the basic knowledge which is connected with food and in addition other parts of it. How much food is grown, what are the foods that are grown, how much water they need, how they add to the trade. All that information needs to be there. Modi ji recently said that India won't be exporting any more grains related to wheat and rice. Is it connected with us?
Yes.
It is. So we need to widen our knowledge and consider that nutrition is no more an individual thing, it is more about a community, it is development of this nation. So we need to widen our research from nutrition, dietetics, individual adequate diets to wider things. I'm going to cover many of the aspects and we can see how simple it is to conduct this research. And we can add to a lot of policy solutions. So we can see that many of the sustainable development goals are connected with nutrition. Whether it is reducing hunger, whether it is growing overall wealth, whether it is overall health, many of them are related to nutrition, and that is why we need to widen our spectrum belonging to nutrition field. We have got skills from this university to major assess nutritional, do the nutritional assessments and other things which can be used for this field too. Please go. So when we talk about the food system, as you correctly mentioned, it starts from production, processing, retailing, transportation, marketing, and now with sustainable food system, it also improves the food wastage. Because every grain that we waste, we are going to waste all the resources. So it starts from farmers to wholesalers, producers, retailers. This whole thing is the food system on which provides us food, which provides the food to the consumers. So when we are doing food system research, we need to consider whole chain, whole value chain. This is called as the food value chain or food system. Now let us look at what is sustainable food system. What are the additional aspects? So this was the food system where we had consumers, food production, food handling, storage, and then food trade and taking it again to consumers. Now there are additional aspects which are added. What are they? Social equity. What does it mean? We spoke about One Health. What does social equity mean? Anybody else apart from this hand? I know you are hungry. Nobody? Can you think about social health? Have you heard the word social health? Or no? No? What does society mean? Everybody who is living around. So food should be available to everybody who is there. It should not be restricted to a specific crowd who can afford it, who have access to it. It should be available for all. People who belong to all socio-economic strata should have access to food. So that is social equity and human health. It should provide health to all. It should not be restricted to one person or one specific strata. And now when we are talking about all, we also include plants and animals because we are using the concept of One Health. The second is economic vitality. Okay, what does it mean? In long terms, the country or the developmental goals should be able to achieve it. Whatever food we are producing, you have heard of the term green revolution? You must have, right? It has been part of your curriculum. So what were the foods that were targeted for green revolution?
Wheat and rice.
Wheat and rice. And what was the purpose of it?
For high yielding variety crops.
Yes, but why? We wanted to feed the nation. We didn't want any starvation. We wanted to be, calories should be adequate. Now, as we heard in the morning, we have shifted now from calories to other nutrients. Just feeding or reducing the starvation is not the target, but we need nutrients. There are many micronutrient deficiencies in India. If we look at the production of India, it is almost 30% higher than what we need. Then why we are on hunger index of 107? That means there is some gap in providing food, affordability, accessibility, availability. These aspects are not taken care of. India is self-sufficient. It is second largest country in the world which is producing food. Then there must be some aspects which are lacking. Either people are not aware, or it is not affordable, or it is not accessible. Some aspects are lacking. So when we are talking about sustainable food system, we are taking care of all these aspects. Apart from this, environmental effects. Does our food have environmental effects? Does production takes any greenhouse gases?
Yes.
Water? Soil? Do we create pollution while producing food? Yes. When we waste food, do we need tax the nature or we tax the resources? We have so many resources around. We have a lot of water, sunlight, soil, everything. But if we overuse it, eventually, over the years, we won't be able to feed ourselves. And that is why we have to think in long term about environmental effects of our food. So what are the general environmental impacts? There are greenhouse gas emissions, land is being used, there is fresh water which is being used, groundwater which is being used. We are almost 78% of the water is being used for agriculture. Right? So if we choose the grains which need less water for production, if we waste low food, if we use lesser water for our recipes, will it add to this water? Yes. And then water scarcity can be reduced. So in addition to reducing hunger, we can reduce the water scarcity. We can add to it, and we need to think of these aspects every day, every time we are doing something. As we say, nutrition is not something that can be only theoretically that we have to listen. We have to practice it every day. Every day while having every food, you have to think whether I met the dietary diversity score, whether I met the protein requirements. We are trained for this, right? We are trained to think about foods, what is their composition. In the same way, we have to think about what environmental impact this food is going to have. Then only we will be able to change it from research to practice. We need to choose foods which need less water for cooking, less water for production, less land for production. But are we aware of which are the crops produced in India which need less water? Is that research there? There is, it has already started, but it needs more hands, and that is going to come from you. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take few examples from my own research which connect food system, sustainability, and environment. Are the concepts of sustainability, environment, and food system clear to you now? So food system, starting from farming, farmers to consumers, the whole value chain. Sustainability, we are thinking about environmental sustainability, production sustainability, health sustainability, economic sustainability, social sustainability. All this is part of sustainability. Till now, the definition of sustainability is not announced. It's not very well clear. People are still judging it what it is that is sustainability. That research is still going on. But we are trying to add to it. And environmental impacts, as I said. So first study which I am going to speak about is a windy study. It was done in Pune. It was a Birmingham, India initiative. So Birmingham wanted to compare with Pune as a city, that what are the stresses in the city, what is the food system, and how we can go ahead and come up with solutions. This was funded by Food Foundation, United Kingdom. Recently, if you go to Food Foundation website, you can see their simple messages related to children and their feeding practices, and what they are advertising it is give tiffins to children, make it full-fledged. So this is how it works on. It works on food policy. So they wanted to sponsor it, and other sponsor was Tata Group, and it was sponsored by Pune Municipal Corporation as the logo of it. It is very important to have bureaucrats or policymakers to be part of your research, because then it can reach from research to actual action. So I know it is difficult to get policymakers to be part of your research, but they took some of the initiatives. Are you aware about the smart city initiatives that are happening in India?
Yes.
How many cities are there in the smart city? What is the competition about? There are 100 cities out in India which are competing for making their cities smarter. It is a competition between all the cities, how they can make their whole city sustainable, not only for food but also for other aspects. So this research was part of the Smart City initiative. So it was a learning partnership. Birmingham wanted to learn from Pune what are the aspects, and eventually it happened so that Pune could conduct the research, but it was not easy in the Birmingham because people didn't respond. Here people are cooperative, they were willing to be part of the research, and that helped the government to make some decisions. So it is not always easy to make policy research. It is easy to make a lab research, community-based research, where we decide some topic, go to people. You must have had it as part of your reports or your internships. So when you ask people, people talk, but that doesn't happen in every country. They need, sometimes they want ethics permissions, which is now mandatory part even of Indian research. If you are sharing any data, recently there was a data sharing bill which happened, and that is very important for all of us because we are going to be part of research. So if you haven't read about it, please go back and read about it. India has its own ethics committee related sanctions which are published by ICMR. They have a guideline for doing any kind of research which says that even if you have to talk with a single person or initiate conversation, starting from your college level, you need ethics permission. So if you haven't read about it, please go ahead with it.
Follow that.
Yeah. Because that is important for going ahead and sharing our research at a larger level and with larger things. So this was part of Food Smart City. It was for development of policies and practice that was the target of this study. And what we covered in this policy-oriented research, the focus was on food prepared out of home. That means what snacks we purchase from outside, whether they are packaged or not packaged, all those foods were part of it. And we wanted to encourage the foods which are safe, nutritious, affordable, and procured in manner which supports the environmental sustainability. Now, because many people are working, they want food to be convenient, but when convenience comes, many a times nutritional values are harmful. So we didn't want that to happen, right? Please go ahead. So when we ask people, are you aware of which foods are healthy? Okay, so we gave them a list of foods. I'm sorry you can't read that, but first were fruits, salads, dals, and boiled eggs. We asked, are you aware that these foods? We gave them a list of foods and asked them which foods are healthy and which foods are unhealthy. So people were properly aware of which foods are healthy and there. So it is not so that there was lack of knowledge. People are aware of what foods are healthy. Next please. But when we ask them, what are the aspects that affect your food choice? This was a policy research. So we wanted government level action to be taken, and that is why all the questions were oriented from that point of view. When we do a traditional research and do policy research, the aspects are different. Policy research has to give results that will initiate action. So we wanted to have some concept of food choice, and we could see that when we asked low socioeconomic neighborhoods, price, taste, quality, healthy option was the sequence of choice. And on the other hand, when we asked about the same factors in high socioeconomic neighborhoods, quality was the topic. Why this is required? Because when you are reaching the crowd and you are making it available for everybody, we should know what is important for whom. So for low socioeconomic neighborhoods, having a nutritious food which is affordable is important. Whereas for those who can afford it, healthy option was important. This is how PMC was going to initiate their actions when they are providing convenient foods to a lot of people. So this affects their food choices are going to affect what they want. Next please. We again asked what action you would expect from your government to be taken. So people didn't want to stop their eating. They knew what is healthy and not healthy, but they wanted government to ban the snack foods and unhealthy foods, and now we have concept of zero trans fatty acids and all these things. So they wanted government to take action. So we can see that a larger proportion of participants said that healthy eating knowledge should be started from the school curriculum. It should not be started at later years, but from the school level, it should be part of the curriculum. Making fruits and vegetables, they should be affordable. They can be given in the school ration in the midday meal programs. That was their selection. Tastier take-home ration should be there. So when they are giving the take-home ration as part of nutritional program, it should be tastier. And safe street food should be there. So they wanted us to put some chart or some logo on all the street food saying that this is safe and this is not safe. So we can see some of the hotels have started giving menu cards with calories or fats on it. If you are aware, McDonald's used to have the cola or this thing at higher price. So that was known as a sin tax on it. That is called, you know that you are doing a sin. And you are paying additional tax. Now we can see that there was a case last year in the Delhi court, and some of the parents had said that they should be banned on street food or fast food on campus, and that legislation has come. So now we cannot have fast foods, soft drinks, fried foods, packet snacks on campus, and they are strictly following it. So these are some of the policy implications of the policy research that I did. Next one. One of the benefits of this study was that in Pune they started giving fruits as part of the midday meal program. So that was, some achievement which was done out of what research we did. We could achieve that. So if we do policy research along with government, and if they are willing to take action as part of the Pune Smart Nutrition program, they started giving fruits in the midday meal. That was an achievement for us, reaching the crowd. If you are giving diets to somebody or giving some counseling, you reach one person. But if you do policy research, you reach thousands of them. It needs lot of evidence to be generated to reach the policy research and come out with any kind of evidence. But you have to start somewhere. This was another study which was again done in Pune, where we started. It was done with funded by International Food Policy Research Institute. If free, you can go and search these institutions because they give you, there are internships which are available, so you can start early. You can join them, and what they do is economics and trade related research mainly they do. They use the secondary data sets, analyze them, and make the policy research possible. So they funded this research, and this basically was done in rural slums and urban neighborhoods among vulnerable adult children and adolescents. And these were the aspects covered. In addition to nutritional aspects which you must be aware of, we added the household purchase pattern and food access and sources. Why household purchase pattern? Because we wanted to know from people what is the cost of food that they are purchasing, whether they are affordable to them. How they are going to purchase. Are they walking to the shops or they are going on vehicle? If they are going on vehicle, they are again having environmental impact. So we need to make foods available at the doorstep, nearby, walkable distance. That way we can reduce the environmental footprint. That is how the food research gets connected with environmental aspects. And we also asked about food access and food sources. Food access, whether the food is available on campus, which foods are available on campus, are they healthy, are they unhealthy? Food sources, whether they are having food from livestock, kitchen gardens, their own farms, or they are using barter system, what way they are getting those foods. Next. I know this graph is big, but I know you are aware of all the foods that we consume, and we always have a list of 27, 35 food groups. So they are all of it, and the bracket which have marked are out of home foods. And we can see large population was every day consuming, whether they are children, adolescents or adults, they were consuming out of home foods as part of their daily diet. Now I don't need to tell you about the effects of out of home foods. So there is a law in the economics which says bad money drives out the good money. In the same way, if people are going to have snack foods or out of home foods as part of their daily diet, you can understand nutritionally adequate diet is going to be diminished and the impacts are going to be bad. Because IFPRI is a trade related organization, they wanted to know how much of part of dals is being consumed as part of the snack foods, and we could find that almost 30% of everyday's foods were coming from pulses. Now, if you look at the national records of NFHS data or the National Nutrition Monitoring Bureau data, we can find that there are no records of snack foods. So when we are counting for foods, we are just counting for pulses, dals and protein foods. But there are no records of these foods, whether for consumption or for production or for trade data. We are lacking on it. This year NFHS has added one group of snack foods overall. But that doesn't separate out which are the foods from pulses or which are the... So when we are thinking about how much pulses should be produced for this country, we do not have account of that 30%, which is important. And we could bring out this as a need from this research. What I'm trying to do is try to give you different examples from different studies that what aspects, why it is not just about nutrition, macronutrient intakes, micronutrient index, it is beyond that when you are thinking about the nutrition. It is beyond just nutrition, it is overall impact, whether it's social, economic, other aspects. Currently I am working on this study. This is an international study, Sustainable Healthy Environmental Food System called as SHIP study. This was supported by Wellcome Trust and it happened simultaneously in India, Africa and UK. I was leading it for India for nutritional studies. There was another group which was leading it for agricultural studies. This was done at CCDC New Delhi, which is Center for Chronic Disease Control, which is a sister concern of Public Health Foundation. So, what was the objective, overall objective? To provide new interdisciplinary research that policymakers can use to shape food systems that will deliver healthy, accessible, affordable and sustainable food to overall population. So as you can see, the overall objective of my prior research and this research is different. It was more policy oriented. This was more of evidence generation oriented. So what we did, this is what we did in India, North and South India, among around 10,000 households. There was already a Uday study, you can go back and read about it. It's an acronym UDAY, all caps. So Uday was a study which was conducted for reducing hypertension and diabetes in large populations. In the same population we embedded this study. What I did is I designed the comprehensive food system assessment which included all these aspects: food intake, out of home snacking behavior, food safety, household purchase, food sources and food wastage, food hygiene. There were multiple aspects of it. So considering that we want to mark the whole system, this was designed. Because if we look at the tools that are available, they are generally from international research. We cannot adopt them to India. Indians have very different kind of food consumption, food purchase pattern. If you go to a foreign country, you go under one roof and you find everything there. Here we purchase every food differently. Fruits at different place, cereals at different place, everything at different place. So their access, affordability, accessibility differs. The policies required are different. We cannot have just geolocation and say that all foods are available. That is not applicable for India, right? We have every food at different level, and that is why we need to design our own tools. If you look at these aspects, generally when you are using these tools, it is suggested that you use the validated tools or tools which are announced. For example, for food security, FAO has already announced FIS, which is Food Inadequacy Insecurity Index. So we generally suggest you to use the validated tools. But in this case, it was not possible because no tools were available for India. So we had to do a lot of research. We have to do the review, design it according to Indian requirements. So that was done, and then it was just now the stage is that the data from 10,000 households is out, and we are trying to publish it. So here are the examples from the publication. As a nutrition, being from a nutrition background, my first concern was metabolic risk and nutrition. That is what we think about, that is what we are taught about. We could see these are the high, mid, low of the snack food consumption, tertiles of that. And here we can see low, middle, high, wealth, that is socio-economic condition. and we could find that those who were on top for the snack consumption and on top of the wealth had highest metabolic risk. So if you are wealthy and you are consuming snacks every day, any form, whether they are biscuits or any, they have become part of our daily life. So sometimes people don't understand when we say snacks. Nutritionally, we are aware that snacking is a very different concept. It is having the food in between the meals. They can be healthy and they can be unhealthy. But here when we are talking, these are out of home foods, having high fat, high sugar, high salt. If people are consuming that, then it is leading to metabolic risk. Now, this is not something which was unknown to us, but there was no evidence. There are hardly any studies which are on snack behavior which have considered all the foods and connected with the circulating levels. So I'm not talking something which is very new. You all know that foods are connected with metabolic risk, but we need to generate evidence. If you look at clinical research or any research, what is not documented is not done. That's the rule. So start publishing since now, like when you are doing your master. It may be small, it may be a small journal, but that gives you experience and eventually you will be able to publish it in the high impact journal. Any evidence is evidence. Any publication is publication. So start generating. This was published this year in the Journal of Nutrition. Another study where we have compared, another publication from the same study where we have compared with the 8 Lancet diets. Are you aware of it? Okay. Go and read about the 8 Lancet diets. Lancet Commission has developed a guideline where diets can be adequate and environmentally sustainable. That is the basic concept which was used, for which they have, like we have the RDA, they have given suggestions regarding what foods can be consumed, what will be environmentally sustainable foods, and in comparison with that, we compared the Indian diets. So what we found that this is the 8 Lancet recommendation for the 2,500 kilograms, and this is the percent that they have suggested. Generally, dairy foods, animal foods have high environmental impact because they need to be raised, they need to be given water, they use land, and then they produce food. So that is a high environmental impact. When I say environmental impact, it means water, land, water, everything has been used in there. So they have designed a diet which has lower environmental impact but are adequate, nutritionally adequate. And when we looked at Indian diets, what we found, overall energy consumption was lower. Here it was 2,500. We could find that people are having 1,500 calories approximately every day. These are adults from North and South India, around 10,000 adults. But their diets were higher in dairy, they were refined, there were lots of fats and sugars. They were having low micronutrient diets, but high diets which are high in, so they are high for metabolic risk. We don't need anybody else to tell us that. Another research from the same, another publication from the same study. This was food insecurity. Food insecurity can be measured using the food insecurity scale, which is designed by FAO. It's a standard scale which asks 8 questions. Depending on the question, for example, here is a question: you went without eating for a whole day. It can be applied to whole household. It can be applied to individual. Depending on their experience, what they shared, we rank the people. We rank the people according to their people. So this was regarding like they were total starvation. There was no food. Mild is there when they had stress about it or they were out of food. That was mild food insecurity. Sorry, moderate food insecurity. And mild is when they didn't have enough of variety. You need to be very careful while administrating these foods. Some of my health workers asked, so pizza was not available. That food is good. I said no. You are talking about healthy foods which are available. So when you are using these indexes, they generally provide you the guidelines. The complete guidelines regarding how to use these data, how to analyze. They are online and freely available. If you are using any of these tools, please read the guidelines. Use them first, get trained, and then apply it in the larger community to get data. What we could find that among our population there was mild food insecurity. That means people could not eat variety of food or they did not have the food of their choice. So that was there. If we look at India's report, which is published, we can find that record is that 25% of Indians are having severe food insecurity, whereas our research showed something different. That Indians are having food, but the variety is less. Their dietary diversity is less. So that report, international report, was based on 1,000 people. This data is on 10,000 people. But you need to publish that so that you can say that no, if we go to wealthier neighborhoods, food insecurity is lower. We cannot generalize that whole of India is having 25% of food insecurity. We again asked about sustainability aspects. It was very difficult to design this questionnaire because the sustainability is not defined well. Okay, so we designed these considering that we can relate to sustainability aspects. We asked about, do you read labels? The purpose was that do they look for the national food, international food, specific brands, nutrient index? What do they look for? Most of them look for price, or the offers which are there, or if the food is advertised on the television, or if they fancy some food, then what were the brands preferred? Whether the organic food awareness is there, purchase is there. So in some of the households, they haven't heard of organic. They don't know the concept of organic. Using the terms like organic is not useful to do that research. But then we have to think about our own ways to define organic. How do you define it? Was there recyclable packaging? It is important, right? It has environmental impact. Again, minimize the packaging, produced organically, supports fair trade. All these aspects were there. We could get very minimal response to this. In itself, it was a finding that if we really want to study sustainable aspects in India, we need to design something that can be locally understood. We cannot use fancy terms and go back to them and ask about sustainability. That will give very different impression. So, very few participants were aware of sustainability and environment. They couldn't understand that their diet has some effect on their life. They thought of it like their own right. Like, yeah, I'm right to eat food which is produced. I'm right to use water. I said, what about others? Food wastage was one of the aspects which we studied, and there were around 27 food groups which were studied. We designed again the questionnaire, and we could find that the foods that were wasted most were fruits, vegetables, and dals. You are aware of how much of micronutrient deficiencies are there, how much of hunger there is there, and how costly these foods are. Still they are being wasted, and we could calculate the water footprint of it. How do we calculate the water footprint? For example, rice is there. We start from farmers to consumers, how much water was used, how much was green and blue, and then how it contributed to the whole water footprint. So that we did for 27 food groups. We calculated every food using our standard triangulation methods, FFQ, 24 hours, multi-step dietary recall. All these techniques were used, and then these calculations were. So we are using the same basic techniques when we are applying it to larger data set. Only some skills are different, some statistical skills are different. And then we could find that almost 71 liters of water was wasted per week per household. You can imagine how much is 71 liters of water, one household. So how much we can save upon, how much food we are wasting when India is hungry. And this needs to reach back to population so that they can think about it. Another study where we looked at the food systems in the urban settings. Why do you think we need to study urban settings? Are they different from others? They are, right? I've already listed here. There are different population stresses. There are different students coming to learn for education. There are different people coming for their jobs. So in addition to sufficing the requirement of that city, there are additional stresses. There is higher pollution, there is higher wastage, which needs to be taken care of, and that is why urban food systems research is gaining importance. So what were the objectives? We wanted to develop, this was funded by FAO. FAO already had a study in other Asian countries, Nadali and Africa and other countries. They wanted to adopt it to India and Asia. Thank you, sir. So this was a study funded by FAO and they wanted us to adopt it to Asian countries. What we did is we did it in two populations, two cities in India, Ahmedabad and Pune, and two cities in Nepal. And we designed, we did this among the whole value chain from farmers to consumer. There were only 2 wards selected from each city and the study was done and the basic structure was made. The basic structure, whole this thing was made. These were the aspects which were covered. Again, consumption, production, safety, but they were covered for all value chain, whole of value chain. You can go back and check the PDF. I'm going to share this presentation. But we have now published the Urban Food System Assessment Tool, which is there for nutritional healthy diets. It is published by FAO for Asian countries. So our research could contribute to development of a tool for Asian countries. The whole of Asian countries will be applied now and taken ahead. And there are 4 city reports which are published, which have detailed data. You can go to it, it's published online, all the reports, and you can learn from it, you can use the tools. If you have any queries, you can get back to me. She's my postdoctoral student, so I received IMANA fellowship. IMANA is Innovative Metric Solutions for Nutrition and Agriculture and Health Research. I did it around 7 years back. I was trained and I went with a very well-developed tool and I said I must study food access in the villages. So I developed a tool, tested it and went back, and then I found that in the villages the situation is very different and my tool had 0 value. I had to design another tool because when I was talking about whether the fruits are available, this is available, that is available, when I went to villages, there was not a fruit vendor outside the village. I had to wait for a bus for 2 hours, travel to another place, then go for foods, and then said, who's going to think about dietary diversity after this? I'm going to use whatever is available in my farm, and that is potatoes and tomatoes and onions, which doesn't add to dietary diversity that much. So my tool was, I changed it. I recorded 90 indicators, and those indicators whether the roads are available, whether the bakery is available, whether the foods are available, how is the weekly market, where is the water canal, because all these aspects affected the food access. And that is how my 2 publications have come up, one in British Journal of Nutrition and another in American Journal of Preventive Medicine, where I showed that food access was there, but it was for all the packaged snacks foods. If packaged snack foods can reach the remote villages, why not fruits and vegetables? And their B12 levels circulating were low. I could validate these tools using the circulating levels. There are very few studies all over the world which have validated dietary diversity scores with circulating measures. I could do that using the Pune maternal nutrition study data. I added the aspects of food system to it. And she is now Alexa, she's my student, she's going to come to Pune next month. And what she's going to do is UPSIN tools which I showed regarding FAO, she's going to add the sustainability aspect to it. What does that mean? That means from farmers to consumers, how much plastic we are using, how much other products we are using to serve food, and how it is going to contribute to environmental footprint. Till now there are 3 pillars of food environment: accessibility, affordability, availability. She is going to add the 4th one. And then that tool will be available for everybody to use in the library. This is how tools are developed, designed, small research adds to it. So don't feel like this is something international, I cannot do it. You can start from your own neighborhood. Okay? I've just listed till now what studies I discussed. What are the majors? This nutritional thing you must be aware of. must be taught to you. FFQ, dietary recall, micronutrient. Sustainability aspects I have already discussed. Access, hygiene, availability, food environment. Additional is the environmental aspects. Like I mentioned, carbon and water footprint or environmental sustainability aspect that we study. So just to summarize, we must understand that nutrition now plays a vital role in development. Prior they used to measure the socio-economic status of a country on basis of GDP, how much economics there. Now it's Human Development Index, and Human Development Index is closely associated with nutritional index. So we have a vital role to play, and we cannot restrict ourselves only to intakes and micronutrients and health. We have to go wider. Sustainable food system has become focal point of view for policy makers, not only for policy makers. It is not just interest of nutritionists or health professionals. It is also interest of economics, policy makers, governance. Everybody is interested in this. So we have a huge role to play. We are in thing now. Food system is multi-layered phenomenon. I've already shown you through my research that it is not a single aspect, there are multiple aspects to it. Policy research has a wider reach. If you give diet to one person, it reaches one person, one family. If you do policy research, it reaches the whole city, whole country. Okay. Only thing you need to generate that kind of evidence. Understanding local food system and fostering local solution is important. We cannot expect researchers from UK to come and give policy solutions for India. We have to generate it. And as you have seen, the simple tools have been used. It was not something which requires a lot of funding to start. But we have to strengthen ourselves. We have to learn about it. Lot of information is available online. If you go to Imana websites or other websites, you can read about these easily. But we need to bring solutions for our own country. And that research is lacking. So if I'm able to make it interesting for some of you, I think my target is achieved. Right, Anjali?
Sorry, I missed your presentation.
Not an issue. I'm going to share it so you can look at it. So thank you so much. I hope I didn't make it
So much, ma'am. I think it was a wonderful session because you started from the definition of what is a food system, okay, to explaining the concept of chefs in detail, that is sustainable, healthy environment food systems. I think it was beautifully explained there. So I'm sure everybody now is aware of this concept because we've just heard these terms, but to actually understand is a very different game. And I think the research which has been carried out by you is beautiful. I mean, it's really impressive. I'm sure quite a few of our girls would also be interested in collaborating, in this particular area. And now I keep the forum open for questions. Anybody has any
Can I ask
questions?
one question?
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that in some college campus you stopped all the processed foods and all.
I didn't stop.
And
It is now
there is a
legislation
policy.
of India. It is now legislation of India that packaged snacks, foods and soft drinks cannot be provided on campus. If you go to campuses,
It's the alternative then. You have to provide something.
so they are coming up. That is why FSSI is coming up with different solutions. They have put it up on their website.
Because otherwise they'll go out of the campus to eat. So that is even
when
worse.
we did this study, we looked at which campuses are closer to street food.
Yeah.
We did that,
Yeah.
and we could find that in Pune MC Road is very famous, and we could find that the colleges which are nearby don't have any issues with access. But that is where the role of nutrition is coming. We saw so many schools where we need to come up with convenient, healthy, easy to make food. Every one of us is going to work for 8 hours. And still we want our family to have healthy and nutritious food, whosoever we eat. So we want it to be convenient, but we want it to be healthy, and that is where our role comes.
And just one more comment about you said easy accessibility to this type of food. There is a case in Mexico actually where there are villages process where they don't get drinking water, but the Coca-Cola van reaches them. So they get Coke, but not
I
drinking
was
water.
shocked that no fruit vendor in a village, in a whole village, no fruit vendor for 3,000 population. And all the lanes and everything is easily accessible.
Yeah.
There are many aspects which we miss upon. Like for example, these were milk producing households. They had all the livestock, but they were not drinking milk. I asked why. They said when we watch the process of removing milk, we feel unhygienic. So we drink packaged milk, and then packaged milk is costly. So we drink packaged milk only for making tea coffee, not for drinking.
I have a question to ask. When we talk about India lately and sustainable food systems and environmental impact, we have something NDCs and the Panchamrit, which is lately there. And recently there's a buzz about this production of food crops. Like the world is pointing out in India and saying that there's a lot of pollution created because of the production. Food crops production because of the greenhouse gases and all. So ma'am, what kind of solution would you like to mention when it comes to policy, research and all?
Yeah, thank you. So there are already papers published about this by Alan Tagore and Rosemary Green, who have worked a lot on India and related water footprints and things, and they have suggested, one of the suggestions is go for millets. Go for crops which need lesser water, which can be grown anywhere. So shift now from rice and wheat, and which was there traditionally as part of our diets. It was there. All the recipes, if you look at, I am aware of Maharashtrian diet, so I am speaking about Maharashtrian diet. But if we look at Indian culinary practices, all these small grains were already part of our diets. Whether you are going to have a fast or other things, if you are going to remain without any typical tradition, these options were there. And now more research is happening about it. So one option is shifting our diets from typical rice and wheat to other grains only. The other option is thinking about trade. For example, dals are made, like produced well in Rajasthan, it requires lesser water. To produce them in Visakhapatnam, it requires larger water footprint. We have seen it in the graph. That is because all the Himalayan ranges are going to enrich the water footprint of whole of north, and that is why it is available for production. Then why not transport it rather than producing it? But we have to calculate it. What is costing more? Whether the pollution is adding or water footprint is adding. We have to have the balance. So these type of solutions are coming up. There are not many water footprint and environmental footprint related publications for India. Just now I'm going to submit a paper on food wastage and water footprint, and after that on carbon footprint. But then I found that I had to do so many of, in addition to nutritional calculations, I have to literally go food wise and create a reference list of thousands of foods, and it was like breathtaking how long. But there are not many. So this is a one research area which is open and which is easy to conduct.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for being patient despite
Ensure that you have two questions every round. I'll just add to the second question here. So moving on to the third one, okay. I think we already talked about food production, food transport, which somehow are not our area of expertise, but food consumption is. And food consumption also leads to a greater carbon and water footprint. So as a dietetic fraternity, even though we don't want to go on the fields and tell them what to grow and where to grow and how to use the water resources, we can educate our population, our consumers, our patients to how leave a certain kind of a footprint which has a lower carbon footprint. And it is not just switching off the lights and fans, even the kind of food that we consume, the processed snacks, ultra-processed foods, the milled rice and the milled products that we are into, against the whole grains, which are not only nutritionally more sound, but also very sustainable conscious. So I think maybe one or two tips if ma'am can provide on how we can maximize or reduce the carbon footprint in food consumption patterns rather than food production, because that is more relevant to our area.
Finally, I would like to just add to the initial part of this. When I started in this career, I was pure nutritionist. I was working with Thackersey for 20 years. purely on maternal child health, focusing on nutrition, physical activity, body composition, not thinking beyond that. If you ask me how much India is producing, wheat is producing, I didn't know. If there are any policies, I didn't know. But then I started reading about it. Initially when I wrote the paper on food access and its association B12 with B12 values, circulating B12 values among adolescents, I felt like everything is fake because I was always used to the too rigid blood parameters. From there, I was going to a crude level where I developed the index based on how many buses are available and how many roads are available. So I felt like I'm doing some, these are spurious results, these are not true. But when I really found the association that depending on access, the B12 values are changing, I felt like this is something to add on, I can give a message. So at some point, we have to start our communication with agriculturists, economics, read wider. It's not something, I will not go and suggest which foods to be produced, but I should know which foods contribute to carbon food. I should know at least in Rabi and Kharif which foods are produced. At least that much knowledge I can have. Or I should know about my country, which place is producing which foods and where water footprint is used. So somewhere interdisciplinary communication has to be started. We cannot say that trade is role of economists or giving suggestion to crop because they too need information from nutrition. When I did the IFPRI research and when I started talking to Devesh, I said, Devesh was like, you are too critical about these many foods, their protein, their calorie and this values, this cannot be done. But eventually we came up with policies. That communication has to be started, first thing. Secondly, when we are thinking about foods, we cannot, variety is the spice of life. Everywhere that's the rule. So make sure that you are following all the dietary diversity principles in your life. When you are choosing food, go for higher fiber, low packaging, go for local foods, local brands. You may not need to alter your tests because everything is available. At least I am aware in Pune, Mumbai, similar is the situation all over now. When I did research in South and North, I would find that every place has its own variety. And go and learn about traditional foods. There are so many traditional foods which we miss upon. Go back to your family and ask how this food can be used in different ways. They will give you 10 recipes. Try to make them. Try to come up with them. So that is what we are missing about. Culinary knowledge. This is what I have found on food wastage this day. Because many of the younger populations were not aware of how milk can be converted to other storable forms like curd, ghee, buttermilk. They couldn't store it longer. Whereas when I went to traditional families, they could easily. That could not be, they could avoid wastage. So learn more about, plan more, this is there. We don't have to tell nutrition students to plan. It's there, we are inculcated from day one that plan and then do it. So I can find that in my everyday life that it's already planned in my brain. So go for that, go for traditional recipes. Think about what we are adding to what and how that process can be used.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. I now request Dr. Rekha Badalwar to kindly felicitate Anjali.